3 years ago now. We did a ton of interviews, and we're back doing them again. Our interview with Tom Dreesen, comedian Tom Dreesen, a huge Chicago fan, huge sports fan in general, went great. We're going to have Kermit Washington on tonight, as I said, and coming up in the coming weeks, Jim Kern, former Ranger. Where'd my list go? Chuck Foreman, former Viking. Jim Sundberg, former Texas Ranger as well. Matt Robinson, formerly of Georgia University and the New York Jets. And we've got Irving Fryer, former Nebraska Cornhusker, New England Patriot, Miami Dolphin. So we got some good stuff coming up. But tonight, my guest is Kermit Washington, former NBA player, one of only 7, and he can correct me, and I've been having a hard time I know Bill Russell's one, and I got to imagine Wilt's another, but I've had trouble finding the 7 people the other 5 people besides Kermit and the 2 I mentioned that averaged 20 rebounds and 20 points a game during their college career. Drafted by the Lakers, had a slow start to his career, but came up after he started working with Pete Newell there, which we'll dive into. Unfortunately, one of the better known things in Kermit's career, and he's had a life that's had many ups and many downs, and we'll get into all of that. One of them was the famous punch with Rudy T. We certainly want to get into his side of that story. Did a lot of humanitarian work after his career, and which led to some other things. And we'll let Kermit tell his story as he wants you to know it. And we're glad to have Kermit on today because I enjoyed watching Kermit's career when I was a younger man. And right now I'd like to welcome Kermit to the show. Welcome, Kermit Washington. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you today?
I am so good. It's been a good week. It's Friday. We're going to have a great conversation with you, which we'll put up next week. And I'll make sure I tag you, by the way, when we do broadcast it and get it up on Facebook and YouTube and the other places. And we're trying to get some spring here in the Northeast. I know you're out there and on the West Coast. We've had a very mild winter here in upstate New York, and we've had about 2 feet of snow in the last 10 days. So winter should be gone. You grew up on the East Coast, right?
I miss the snow. I don't miss the snow at all.
Yeah, you grew up in Washington, D.C. or the area?
Yeah, and we had back then, you're talking about 50-some years ago, we had a lot of snow back then. They don't get it like that anymore, but we used to have piles of snow. I mean, up to your knees. Yeah. But things have changed, and the weather has changed.
Same way up here. I'm in upstate New York near Albany. We used to have lots more snow than we get now. I mean, we'd have 80, 100 inches of snow a year. Now if we get 30, it's a lot. So, yeah. And I know you're certainly a former big star in the NCAA, as I mentioned. We'll get into that in a few minutes. I'm only 8 minutes away from the MVP Arena where they're playing, and I'm watching UConn and Iona right now in the NCAA tournament. I'm 8 minutes away from the stadium, but I didn't get tickets this year. So they're playing one of the East regionals in Albany this year. So,
well, I was listening to that game off and on. That's a good game to watch. It really is, because it's a lot of, I'm taping it, so it's a lot of activity, a very aggressive game. Iona looks like they were winning it, but just by a few points, but the guys are playing hard. That's the difference. The difference between pro ball and college tournament time. I mean, the intensity that you see out there in the college players is really refreshing to watch.
It is. I'm a Knicks fan, and I try to watch the NBA, and I guess I'm a fair weather fan. So when the Knicks are going well, I still watch. But the games are much different, as you say, and it's much more enjoyable to watch the college kids play, in my mind. But anyway, let's dive into it, because we're going to get into some of that conversation as we go through here today. You grew up, as we just talked about, in Washington. I mean, you didn't have the easiest childhood, and going through school. You had your challenges there with your upbringing, your schoolwork, and I know you had a teacher. In fact, I just saw one of your messages looking for an old teacher of yours who helped you with your academics or get more interested in academics. Tell us a little bit about that part of your life, Kermit.
Well, hell, it's a long story. I grew up in Washington, D.C. My mother was paranoid schizophrenic, but she's the first one to graduate from college. And she graduated summa cum laude, #1 in her class. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't know that. And I just knew after I was 1 or 2 years old, she became mentally ill and was diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. So we ended up with her. My parents divorced, and we were with her for a couple of years, off and on, traveling, just trying to find somebody to live with. But then it got to the point where we were taken away from her and given to a great grandmother that was born in 1886. So
Whoa.
she had little boys, taking care of two little boys. And she was about 70 some years old, almost 80 probably by then. I was born in 1951 and my brother was born in 1950. But, growing up in DC, not with your parents, with a grandmother who couldn't read or write or tell time. Was it difficult? Well, she was a very strict woman. So still to this day, I'm very polite. People say, why are you so polite? Well, I guess it was beaten into me by my grandmother when I was a kid. But, growing up, when you don't have people at home helping you with schoolwork, honestly, I didn't think I could do the schoolwork. So it's not like being lazy or not wanting to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I visualize myself doing the schoolwork, but learning that, when you get older, you realize that you had the potential to do it, because my mother graduated, summa cum laude, #1 in her class in college. So I guess I had the potential, but I didn't know that. And what you were saying, it was my high school teacher. I honestly didn't do any schoolwork until my junior year in high school. And you say, well, how did you get through school? Well, I went to summer school every year. You have to understand. Only the reason I went to summer school is because it was air conditioning. And if you know how the weather is back east, humid.
I do.
For air conditioning, it was a monster. I said, well, I'm going to go to summer school. And and it sounds bad, but I knew that the summer school teachers were there to get a paycheck.
Right.
They weren't really there to make sure we all did really well and learned our lesson. But I realized if I did my homework, I would get a B. And so if you looked at my report card in high school, you would say, oh my gosh, Kermit, you were a very good student. Not at all. But I always would go to summer school, 2 or 3 classes, because back then summer school was free. And you could go and make up courses that you didn't do well in. And one thing I was telling somebody the other day, it came to the point where back then I took 3 years of Latin, 2 years of French, algebra in the 9th, algebra 2, geometry, analytic geometry. So they made us take courses back there.
Yeah.
Give us the opportunity to, choose our own courses, because I would not have chosen those hard courses. But it did me well when I did finally wake up my junior year, because I had a really good homeroom teacher and she became my biology teacher. And I never had lunch money. So I would do chores for her in the room, and she would give me 10 cents or 15 cents or whatever. And then I could eat. But when she became my biology teacher, since she was so nice to me, I did my work in biology and nothing in anything else. But I would get the highest grade in all of her biology classes. And she's the one that told me, Kermit, can you please make the honor roll for me? I said, Mrs. Thomas, I have never had a report card that doesn't have D's on it.
Yeah.
She says, Kermit, you can do it because you get the highest grade, in my biology test, and you can do the work. I said, for you, Mrs. Thomas, I'll try. And she, as I said, she changed my life, because the next year I made the honor roll. And then back then, you had to have a certain grade point average, and you had to have certain grades on your SATs to even get into college.
Sure.
So that's the story. So I did really well my senior year, and the coaches were able to get me in because they saw the progression of my progress. But then again, they looked at all the summer school grades. But here's the thing. The summer school grades became your permanent grade. So they didn't know if you went to summer school or whatever. So they said, well, that young kid is doing some good schoolwork.
Well, it worked. Do you have a sense? I mean, do you have any, is she still with us, do you think?
You know what? They have a lot of people looking for her. She's 15 years older than me.
Yeah.
So it would be probably 85, 86, 87.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but this is not when I first started looking for her. I started looking for her over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find her. I went back to the high school. I tried Facebook, but now Facebook is, is so much more powerful than Instagram. So we have a lot of people that have messaged me, said they're looking for me or her kids.
I didn't look when the video was on because I wanted to ask you first. I'll be happy to share it to my personal page and to the TGI Sports Talk page if it's shareable on your page. I'm not sure that it is, but I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
We'll reach a few more thousand people anyway. That's about 4,000 people. You never know who you're going to come across, right? So
you never know.
Yeah, so that's a great story. So as you're going through high school in sports, I mean, you were I think you were 6'4" in your junior year, or maybe even your senior year, but you weren't really a big star on your team. You didn't play a lot, score a lot. How did Kermit Washington get found to end up at American University with Tom Young?
Like a miracle. My best friend name was Glenn Price, who went on later to play at St. Bonaventure, had a car. And he says, Kermit, if you go out for the basketball team, I'll give you a ride to school and a ride home. Because I played on the football team and tennis, baseball and everything. But I was only an average, at best, athlete. But I love sports. So he says, well, if you go out for the team, I said, okay, I'll go out for the team because I was 6'4", and I played on the playgrounds, but I had never played really organized basketball before. A couple of the guys, though, got cut off the team because they didn't have the grades.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes they put me in the game. And oh, my goodness, I embarrassed myself a lot of times because I just didn't really know how to play the game. And to be honest with you, I wasn't really interested in getting in the games. I just wanted to ride to school and ride home.
By the way, those kids that got kicked off the team should have gone to summer school. Probably they would have still been on a team with their grades.
Well, you know what? No, because here's the thing: summer school grades go for the year in the past.
Oh, I see.
It doesn't start till November, so you're going to get grades before before the season. I mean, before the season starts. If you don't have a certain amount of grades, they kicked you off. So. We had a good team. I think they were like 16-8 or 18-6. But when they put me in, I didn't play too well. I think about 6 points. Now, I don't even know 6 points, to be honest with you. Maybe 2 or 3 rebounds for a game.
Yeah.
I embarrassed myself because I was a halfway decent athlete in football and everything else. I was a C+. Now in basketball, I was like a D-. So I said, this is ridiculous. So this is a funny story. I bought a book to try to be better as a basketball player, read on how to be better. But I read an article about Spencer Haywood, who was an Olympian.
Yeah.
And I saw he had a weight vest, and he would jump with a weight vest. Then I had a great player in D.C., James Brown, who is an announcer for CBS with football now.
Right.
Great high school basketball player, one of the best leapers. And I said, well, he jumped rope. So I saved up enough money, and I went and bought me a weight vest, a 20-pound weight vest, and a jump rope, and I started jumping rope. This is after the basketball season was over, my senior year. Well, I got so good, I was jumping 10,000 times a night with a 20-pound weight vest. Now, I want everybody listening to understand, I didn't start at 10,000. I started at 100, double it a few days later to 200, double it again to 4, double it again to 8 to 16. I got to 10,000 times every night with a 20-pound weight vest jumping rope. And my jumping ability just went off the roof. It was incredible. And so I'm another lucky thing too. The best playground to play on was 2 blocks from my house, called Rudolph Playground. Monday through Thursday, you had the best players in Washington, Maryland, and Virginia area came there to play. 10 of those guys made the NBA that played there on that playground as we were kids. It'll never happen again because the AAU has taken over.
Right.
10 of those guys made the NBA or the ABA, and I got good enough, not the first year or two to play with them, but by my sophomore year, I was a good player. And I could play with the very best in Washington, D.C. And there were some good players in D.C. back then.
So as you got to American, you didn't get there on a basketball scholarship?
Now, that's another funny story. I have nothing but stories, but they're all of the truth.
I believe it.
I had a nasty neighbor named Mr. Craig, something, Mr. Craig. I don't know what his name was. It was Craig. I know that's one thing. And when I would be jumping rope outside at night after the season was over, I guess it disturbed him because he says, well, if you think you're such a good basketball player, you should try out for that all-star team. It's called the Allentown Tournament. And they had to let every senior, now listen to this, regardless if you were a starter or a star, they had to let every senior that played varsity at least try out for it. So he says, well, you think you're so good, why don't you go try out for that all-star team? I had never heard of it. He was the way he said to him, I said, well, I'll try out for it. So the day of the tryout, I hitchhiked to ride from where I lived to a place called St. John's High School. That's near Rock Creek Park. And the coach, which was Morgan Wooten, the coach from DeMatha, very famous coach, high school.
I remember the name, yeah.
Yeah. He says, well, Washington, I don't remember you. We played Calvin Coolidge. I don't remember you playing. Oh, I said, Coach, I was sick that game. No, I probably was sitting on a bench. I wasn't sick. But he had to let everybody try out. But I had improved so much in those 2 or 3 months from jumping the rope and trying to practice to be better. I played well. And coaches they had different coaches, not a monstrous amount of coaches, but coach from Maryland came to me. Coach was Lefty Drizel was just taking over.
Yeah.
Georgetown, George Washington, American. Let me see, Rutgers came.
Was that John Thompson? I'm sorry, John Thompson at Georgetown, or he wasn't there yet?
No, he wasn't there yet. He was still at St. Anthony's High School.
Okay.
So no, he wasn't there yet. And so he was playing at the playground. So he was at the playground that I went there. I would watch him play.
Interesting.
So the thing is, I played so well. One coach, maybe Western New England. Do you know where that school is?
Western New England? I'm going to say it's in Western New England. Other than that, no.
Well, this one coach came to me after about the second day. He says, I will offer you a scholarship if you don't come back to try out anymore. I said, well, that's nice of you, Coach. But I said, I just came here to see how much better I have gotten. So, no, I'm going to keep playing. And he just didn't want other coaches to see me and ask me, want to talk to me. Well, coaches from American University. Now, I live in D.C. American University is in D.C.
Yeah.
I never heard of the school.
Oh, that's interesting.
I never heard. It was Coach Tom Young and Tom Davis. Both became very, very good college coaches.
Dr. Tom?
Dr. Tom.
Really?
And there was Tom Young, who went to Rutgers, and they went to the Final Four.
Yeah, the undefeated team with Phil Sellers. I remember that team very well.
There are 4 guys that made the NBA from that team. Well, they came to me, and after one day, they said, what kind of grades do you have? I said, I have pretty good grades. Well, they checked my grades, and my grades were good. It really weren't good, but they were good because of summer school. Last year, I really did some schoolwork. So they said, we'll take you out to dinner. Now, I had never been out to dinner in my life. Never been out to dinner. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll go out to dinner. We went out to eat, and they bring me a menu. I had never had steak in my life. And I said, well, steak sounds good. So they brought a steak to the table with potatoes and other things. I thought it was for everybody at the table. Everybody. So there had 4 people at the table. I thought it was going to split it. They said, this is yours. This is yours. I said, this is mine? This whole steak is mine. I said, I'll sign with your school. Don't worry, wherever it is. Like this. And so we ate. They were nice, very nice. Well, coach is going to be nice anyway, especially want you, so you might not see the real person. But they took me up to campus, which is only about 10 miles from where I lived. But I had never been on that side of the tracks before. Let's use that word, on the other side of the tracks. And this is 1969. So it's not like it is today. I went up there and the campus was so nice. You know, they took me up to the rooms. They had air conditioning. Now, I had never had air conditioning in my life. They had blinds on their bedroom window. I had never had blinds on my bedroom window. They had pillows. I had never had a pillow in my life.
Wow.
And just all these things. I said, well, no, this is nice. I'll come to your school. So I went to a school I had never heard of, American University. And that's how I got to American University.
Interesting. And you turned into a pretty darn good player. As I said, you know, you're one of only 7 guys, correct, that averaged 20 points and 20 rebounds, which is actually the name of your podcast, 20 and 20, the 20 and 20 podcast. I like that.
Yes.
We'll talk about that some more too. To average that for your career. Now, you cannot believe how much, I cannot believe I can't find it. You can find everything on Google. I know Russell.
It was Artis Gilmore, Dr. J, Bill Russell, Elgin Baylor, myself, Walter Dukes. And is that 7?
I think that was 6, I think. Will isn't one of them.
No, Elgin Baylor, Bill Russell, Dr. J, Artis Gilmore,
5.
Walter Dukes. Oh, Paul Silas. I'm forgotten.
Paul Silas. Okay.
Paul Silas and me. That's it.
Kind of shocked. Wilt isn't one of them. The only one I really knew was Bill Russell because I just watched a documentary on Netflix about Bill Russell. There's a 2-part. It's really good.
Well, here's the thing.
That's a pretty good group of people, by the way, Kermit.
Well, you got to be conscious of rebounding. I didn't know that was a lot of rebounds. I didn't know what a lot of rebounds were. I just knew when the ball went up, go get it. I mean, I'm serious. One coach I read in the paper, I'm telling you how ridiculous I was, naive. One coach says, well, Kermit's going to get his own rebounds, but we have to keep him off of his own boards. I said,
own the shots.
I said, what is that? I didn't know. And so I realized that offensive rebounds were more difficult to get.
Yeah.
But when I went to college, I was in such good shape. I would still jump rope. I still would run the stairs every day. I would never miss a day working out. Then my coaches started me lifting weights. I gained 80 pounds in 4 years of college.
Wow. From
lifting weights. And I was just as diligent in lifting weights as jumping rope and running the stairs every day. So I knew I was in good physical condition. And I started believing in myself because even people say, well, who do you guys play at American University? Well, 12 guys that we played against in college made the NBA. So it wasn't like we were playing teams all the time. And my greatest games were always against the best teams, or against Louisville or Georgetown or St. John's or just name them. It was always the best, the best teams is where I had the best games because I was really ready to play. And I didn't have too many bad games. Not at all. Very few bad games.
And what was your relationship like with Coach Young and Coach Davis? Was Coach Davis there the whole time as well?
No, he was only there 2 years.
2 years.
And he went from there to Lafayette.
Yeah.
Then from Lafayette to Boston College, from Boston College to Stanford, I think. Stanford to Iowa, and Iowa maybe to Drake. I don't know. I
think you got it right. Yeah.
He moved around. Very good coach. Very, very good. Both of them were very good coaches. And but you know what? They just let me do because I didn't know anything about basketball. And all they would do is say, Kermit, don't overwork, don't overtrain. But I didn't know what they really were talking about. So every day, regardless, even after games, I would come home and run the stairs with my weight vest. I was fanatical about trying to be good because I had a lot of catching up to do. But I loved basketball. I mean, and now, was I nervous for games? Not until my senior year when everybody was going after me.
Yeah.
Try to outplay me. but I was only outplayed one game in my whole career. That was against a guy, was a Syracuse center named Smith. I was a sophomore, and he was a senior. He played for the Portland Trailblazers, but he was just 7', 260. He was just too big for me, and I was still about 190 at that time.
And you were an academic All-American in college as well, right?
Well, I was a two-time first-team academic All-American, and the same way that I worked out with weights, I would study every day about 4 or 5 hours a day. And my sports information director, I was like a B average my first 2 years because I worked. But you know what? Maybe I had a lot of catching up to do because I didn't do any schoolwork until my junior year in high school. And the kids at American University were pretty smart kids. You know, their average SAT score was probably about 13 or 1400. I don't know if anybody in my whole school got that.
I'd have to take it 3 times to get that, probably.
Yeah, and so I just studied. I just honestly, every day I would study about 4 or 5 hours every day. My teammates say, "Well, we never see you on campus, Kermit." I said, "Well, either I'm at class or studying or working out." You know, but I had fun. So people think you didn't have fun. On the weekends, I did have fun, but I just wanted to make it. I just was, whatever it took to make it, I was willing to pay the price.
When did you think the NBA was a realistic possibility? Now, you got drafted by the Nets, I think, after your junior year. Is that right? But you turned them down.
No, my junior year. Now, listen, I'll tell you a story. After my sophomore year, I was second in the nation in rebounding to Artis Gilmore. Dr. J was number 3. I was number 2.
Yeah.
Averaging about 19 points a game. And I had tremendous games against some of the big teams. And so the Miami Floridians called me as a sophomore. I said, when they called me, they said, "Well, we want you to, come out and play." I said, "I'm not ready to come out to play pro ball." I said, this is my first varsity year.
Yeah.
"Oh, that's okay." Then my junior year, my junior year, my coach, Tom Young, calls me in, and Lou Conosecca had just called and said that we want to take Kermit over Jim Jones, the center from Marquette.
Yeah, great player.
He's willing to come out. We'll offer him 5 years, $500,000, which was $100,000 a year back in 1968.
That's a boatload of money then.
And I told Coach, "No, I don't want to leave." I said, "I'm happy." I said, "Coach, I've never been happy in my life like this." I said, "I'm not ready to leave. I loved the school. I loved my teammates. I was happy." So I just said no. So my coach grabbed me, hugged me, says, "Well, Kermit, that's great." I said, "No, I'm not interested in leaving." And so I knew, though, I was going to make pro ball, though.
Yeah.
A year. Because I saw the people that were going my junior year in the first round, and I thought I was better than they were. Now, you can say, well, you went to American University, but we still played some good teams. We played Virginia Tech, LaSalle, Temple, St. Joe's, St. John's, Texas A&M.
Those are all good basketball schools.
Dominion, Georgetown, George Washington, Syracuse. So we weren't always just playing these cupcakes. We played some very good teams. And I always had good games against the best teams. And so I knew I could play. But then I didn't realize how tough it was with the NBA, though. The problem with the NBA is that I was a center in college.
Yeah.
Pro ball, they moved me to the forward position. That's like night and day. That's like being from a fullback to a halfback. And most common people would say, well, they're the same position. They're running backs. No, it's a big difference between a fullback and a halfback. And I had to learn. And they were a very good team. I don't know how they got up to the 5th pick in the draft where I was picked. But they told me, well, we don't really have you won't be playing a lot at first. I didn't believe them, but they sat me on that bench for 2.5 years.
Who was your first coach there? Bill Sharman was still there?
Very good man. But the problem back then, you only had 2 coaches. And both of my coaches, John Barnhill and Bill Sharman, they both were point guards. they just didn't know how to help me to be a better big man. So I struggled till Pete Newell. I kept bugging Pete Newell, who was the general manager, to work with me. And when he finally started working with me, I became a starter in the league for the rest of my career.
Great college coach won a national championship with Bill Russell at San Francisco, right?
No, he coached at Cal Berkeley.
Cal, I'm sorry. No, San Francisco, I thought.
Yeah, and Bill went to University of San Francisco. But he coached Bill Russell in the Olympics.
Okay.
Jerry West and Oscar Robinson. That was a great Olympic team.
Yeah, it was. That's funny. I could have swore he coached San Francisco for Bill Russell. Good call there. And listen, there were still a lot of stars on that team when you got there. I mean, Jerry West was still playing, right?
Jerry West, Gail Gerwich, they got Connie Hawkins.
Yeah.
Harrison, Bill Bridges. They still had some very good players. And
Kareem wasn't there yet, correct?
Who?
Kareem wasn't there yet.
No, he came my third year.
Yeah.
He came my third year, and that changed everything because Wilt retired my first year.
Yeah.
He came in and said he's finished playing. So he was tired of playing. But I guess if they were making the money they're making now, he wouldn't have retired. So.
Well, I remember there was a lot of stories about Wilt coming out of retirement and playing 10 minutes a game here with the Knicks, and never did happen. I guess he did play with the ABA with the Conquistadors, or he coached them.
I know he coached the San Diego Conquistadors.
Yeah.
And they say he was going to play, but he still hadn't officially retired with the Lakers. So
maybe it's volleyball I'm thinking of, because he started playing professional volleyball, I think, after he retired, if I remember right, Wilt.
Well, he's just down there chasing the women. That's
well, not to get into that story, but if he got the number of women he said he did, man, he was a busy guy.
Hey, I knew Wilt. I told Wilt he was lying. Wilt, you're lying about that. Now, a thing you have to give him credit for. As a basketball player, one of the greatest that ever played. As a track guy, extremely good track guy in high school.
Yeah.
Runner. Now, his boxing ability, I told him that Ali would have knocked you out, Wilt, in the first minute of the fight. And he didn't believe that. And I said, with the women, I don't believe any of that story.
I did the math one time. It would have been extraordinary. He'd been a very tired man.
Well, he started that. He started saying that when he was 34 years old. All you have to do is the math, and it doesn't add up.
Right. This is like 10 women a day.
But I loved him. But he was a storyteller. He wasn't I called him Uncle Remus one time. He got upset with me.
So up to this point of your career, because you start to improve as your Laker career goes on. I think Jerry West probably became the coach. You're working with Tom Newell and
Pete Newell.
Pete Newell, sorry. The influences on your career up to this point, was Pete Newell the biggest influence on your career, or were there others that we haven't talked about?
No, it was Pete Newell, because pro-wise, it was Pete Newell.
Yeah.
He got me. I kept bugging him. I said, Pete, you've got to work with me, because I knew that he was a good college coach. And the coaches I had in pro were good guys. But, it's just like me working with a point guard. I can't help a point guard.
Yeah.
I played that position. I guess I could be better than a guy who never played basketball. But you need somebody that understands that position. And Pete Newell knew how to help me. But he couldn't help me until my end of my third year. And that's because he retired. And he retired, says, now I can work with you. As soon as he started working with me, my career started taking off.
Well, he built an industry, didn't he? Basically open up his own big man school?
Well, the big man school started with me.
Yeah.
And after I go from a bench warmer to a starter and playing pretty well, about 9 points and 9 rebounds a game on a very good team, other people start sending their players to work with them too. So we had probably, if you look back at it, probably 20 guys became Hall of Fame players that went to his camp. And they weren't Hall of Fame when they first, but he must have had maybe 200-300 guys go through that camp and over the years.
Wow. That's an influence on a lot of careers there.
Kareem, Walton, Olajuwon. You had, you just name it. You had Pippen. You had Jerome Kersey. You had the X-Man. You had Duckworth. You had Doherty. You had Steve. Just name them. They all went through that camp, and it was a difficult camp, not an easy camp to go to, but it got me to become a starter, and that's all I wanted was an opportunity, but I didn't have the knowledge to play the forward position. It's like he taught me. I always used to playing with my back to the basket. When you play the forward position, you're facing the bucket.
Right.
But it's a different game. I had to learn.
Well, you learned pretty well because you improved to, be a pretty good power forward in your career. Now, your time with the Lakers, obviously, wasn't all roses because we had the infamous, I guess, incident with Rudy T. And give us we've all heard the stories and seen the videos, Kermit. I mean, tell us a little bit about it from your side of how that all came about and happened.
Well, first of all, let me say Rudy Tomjanovich and I are friends. And I apologize many times, but you have to see, until people know all of the facts, they think they know, but they don't know. Now, a year before, when I was playing the Buffalo Braves, 4 guys on that team jumped me. I got in an altercation with John Shoemate. Then Fred Foster came from behind me and hit me in my head. Mm-hmm. Then you had a guy named Aziz. What was his name? He was a center.
Don Adams. It was a Don Adams, right? It was a center, I think, for Buffalo.
What was his not? We're not talking about the Oklahoma City center. But it was Don Adams. It might have been his name.
Yeah, I think that was the Buffalo center then.
A Muslim name later on, and he hit me. Then another guy, Fred Foster. Remember Fred Foster? Mm-hmm. No, his back. He hit me. So I had 4 guys jump on me when I was with the Lakers because it was an altercation with Shoemate. So what happened back then? It was a $50 fine, and you got thrown out the game. So what happened with L.A.
A lot of fights with that prices.
Oh, shoot. It was a very aggressive game back then.
Yeah.
The bad boys were nothing compared to what it used to be back in the NBA.
You didn't need to carry guns like they carry today.
Let me tell you something. So now here we're playing Houston, and I don't even really know who Rudy Tomjanovich is. Mm-hmm. I always had to check Moses Malone to keep Kareem out of foul trouble. So the ball goes up. It's a rebound. We turn. It was me, Kareem, and a guy named Kevin Kunert. And we turn, and Kevin Kunert, who's their center, 7-footer, was ahead of me. I put my arm around his waist and tried to pull ahead to catch up to the fast break. Well, he elbows me in the face, but I thought it was an accident. I really did. So I stood up and I held my face like this. I said, oh. Then he turned around and punched me in my face. Now, this is the 7-foot center.
Yeah.
So I realized then it was not an accident. So I got in an altercation with him. And then as that's coming to a close, I see somebody running from behind me. And it was Rudy. So I thought Rudy was going to attack me. And I turned and swung, and that changed my life, changed his life. We all, a lot of things changed. And so he was injured. And then I was suspended for, I don't know, 2 months, I don't remember how many months. I had the biggest fine in the history of the NBA.
Yeah.
I got traded from the Lakers. Well, Jack Kent Cook wanted to keep me. But because Kareem had gotten in trouble already in a fight with Milwaukee, Ken Benson.
Yeah, he decked Ken Benson in that game, didn't he?
So,
I believe, right?
Before, or maybe the earlier part of that year.
Yeah.
I can't remember. They just said we can't have Kermit and Kareem there together because that's bad publicity. But, and so I was traded to, after suspension, I was sent to Boston Celtics. Now, I have known Red Auerbach since I was 17 years old. And I didn't know that Red Auerbach, when I met him, his daughter went to school with me at American University.
Oh, no kidding.
And she was friends with my girlfriend, and she needed a ride home one day, but we didn't know it was Red Auerbach. We thought Red Auerbach, and in my opinion, lived in Boston.
Right.
But we walk into her house, and I'd see all of these trophies and all these. I said, well, who is your dad? She says, Red Auerbach. I said, oh my, let's get out of here. And as I'm walking out, he's walking in. He says, young man, go sit down. I want to talk to you. So that
Wow.
that's the beginning of a relationship with Red Auerbach. So he told me that they were going to draft me in the first round, but because I had made first team All-American and everything, he says, you won't be around for us because we're a pretty good team. But I had known him and kept in contact with him for all those years. So he was glad to get me. And I liked Boston when I went to Boston. I played well, about 12 points and 10 rebounds.
Yeah.
Around 12 and 10, around that much. But I loved playing. I liked Red Auerbach. You know the guy that's in charge. It helps you a great deal. It helps you a great deal. So with Rudy, I talked to him later on. I told him I thought he was coming after me. And he probably wasn't. But, if you run behind a guy, what do you think?
Yeah.
The thing is, I took polygraph tests, and I proved that what I was saying was the truth. And a year later, I think New York Times ran an article about that, taking a polygraph test. And I said, I have nothing against Rudy. I thought he was coming to hit me. And I didn't start the fight. So, but you know what? Public opinion is public opinion.
Yeah.
But, you have 10 people watching an incident, and you ask them what happened, you're going to have 10 different versions of what happened.
Well,
and so it was difficult for me, but you know what though? You get through it.
I like to say that people's perspective, Kermit, that's their reality. So, the truth is murky inside people's perspectives. So, it's good that you and Rudy were able to move past that. And you feel like the Lakers, were you hurt by the fact that the Lakers didn't keep you and maybe stand behind you a little bit more?
Well, yeah, you are hurt, but I understood why they did it though, too, because back then, the league back then wasn't like it is now. They were always really concerned about public opinion.
Yeah.
And public perception. And they didn't want to be in a position where you had two black guys got in a fight with two white guys.
Yeah.
And no, they didn't want that. And Kareem was indispensable. Now, Kermit Washington was easily dispensable. So
what would have happened if, you'd been the white guy and Rudy'd been the black guy, do you think?
I'd been a hero.
Yeah.
They would have said, that brother was coming after you. They would have. It's just like hockey. They don't care if hockey guys fight. That's just part of hockey.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we as a minority and blacks, we're viewed as in a different way. We're judged in completely different. We're judged that we're aggressive. We are gangsters and stuff like that. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. So when you're viewed, it's just like police. How many people have been shot and killed because police perception of who they were or what their intentions were?
Yeah.
As opposed to what they really were. You know what though? You get over it. You don't feel. I don't even think about it. To be honest with you, it's just something that happened. Now people say, "Would you do it again?" Well, if two people are running down the street, and one of the guys hits me and the other guy runs at me, well, I either going to run or try to protect myself again.
Well, it's happening so fast in the moment. I got to believe, this is a malicious act. You're just lashing out, right, at what was coming at you.
You know what? I'm not a fighter. I've never been in a fight.
Yeah.
After that, listen, no, I was never in a fight after that because Commissioner Kennedy said, O'Brien said that if I ever got in another fight, I was gone. regardless of the circumstances. So, but to be honest with you, the players really left me alone for the rest of my career. They left me alone for the rest of my career.
Because you now you have this reputation. Is that they're not going to mess with Kermit? Is that the deal?
Yes, that's it. Kermit's crazy. That's
what about Kermit, though? I mean, how did it affect you and the way you approached the game? I mean, were you as aggressive? Did it hurt your aggressiveness on the court at all?
No, my career was so much better after.
Yeah. You had some really good years with the Clippers and the Blazers.
Blazers, yeah. I played very well after.
Now, you played, if I'm not mistaken, did you play with Kevin Cunnard after that? With the Clippers?
That's a long story. They did that to me on purpose.
Really?
Because they didn't want, because he's the one that started the fight, they didn't want me to sue the team that he was on for starting the fight. But back then they didn't have video of all the, like nowadays they have everything.
Right. You had the one shot.
Yes.
I'm glad you were able to move past it. I mean, obviously it was a dark time in your life and Rudy's life and both of you. Rudy came back and played after that.
Yeah, not only did he come back and play, he made the All-Star team.
Yeah.
Back and made the All-Star team. So we both did well.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you guys were able to move past it yourselves. So, and he did pretty well after his playing days too, winning a couple of championships with the Rockets, obviously too.
Very, very nice man. Honestly, yeah. I'm not just saying that. Very nice man.
Yeah. Are you guys still in touch today, or not?
On Facebook, we're friends, but I haven't talked to him for probably 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah. Well, I hope you get a chance to again soon. So, as your career goes on. And as I said, you started to move around a little bit. You said you were in the Celtics, not a long time, with the Clippers, with the Portland Trail Blazers. You played for some great coaches and Bill Sharman to start with. Jerry West, maybe not as much as he was a player, but you played for Gene Shue. You played for Jack Ramsey. You played for Tommy Heinsohn. Which one of these? I mean, who do you think was the best coach you played for in the NBA?
That's a good question. I would say that Jack Ramsey. But I would say also that the most motivating one is Jerry West. He was my teammate but Jerry West didn't play at all. I mean, he didn't play around at all. He was very serious about everything he did. Everything.
Was he a good coach? Why didn't he stay there? He didn't want to coach, or what was the deal there?
He's a very good coach. Very, very good coach. And the thing is that he couldn't be there in a sense because he just couldn't stand and he just couldn't do anything like that. And I just went there just for a second. The thing is that he just couldn't stand and basically the stress got him. The stress just got him.
Oh yeah,
just got him.
So he kicked himself upstairs.
Yes, he did. He's a very good. Oh, he's done a tremendous job.
Would they have? If you think he continued and the stress didn't get to him, because not long after. They win with Paul Westhead. They win with Pat Riley. Obviously, they go gets very well. If Jerry West had stayed and had a long tenure, do you think the Lakers would have been just as?
Oh yes. Oh my goodness, yes. He's a very good disciplinarian. Very good disciplinarian. Is there a chance that we can stop just for a few minutes and I can get back on in a second?
Can I pause this? You know what? You can pop out and I'll just stay here and chat a little bit. How long are you gonna be?
Okay, just for real quick, and I'll explain to you after the show's over.
Okay. So Kermit has to step away a little bit, and I'll chat with you guys for a little bit. Obviously, we've been talking about Kermit Washington's career up to this point. Is his less than model upbringing, becoming a better young man and student. Because of probably the circumstances that he was in, not on a lark, maybe on a lark because a cranky neighbor challenged him to go join an all-star team. He gets found and ends up at American University and becomes a huge NCAA star. And, his career takes off from there. He's I think the 8th pick in the draft for the Lakers, plays with some of the greats of the game, and Jerry West and Gail Goodrich and Wilt Chamberlain. I guess he didn't really play with Wilt Chamberlain, but Kareem he played with later on. and we've talked about the incident with Rudy Tomjanovich, which, they've, made up and become friends of a sort. And, it was a dark time for both of those guys. Rudy was in bad shape, and I'm sure Kermit was in bad shape mentally and ostracized a little bit, as we said, by the Lakers especially. And he gets to rehab his career with the Celtics, but Red Auerbach rather, throwing a bit of a lifeline. So,
okay, I'm back.
Well,
I'm sorry.
That's all right. You're okay. We won't keep you too much longer. I want to certainly finish up on a couple of things. So you as your career goes on, like a lot of guys, especially big men, you start to have some physical ailments that affected your playing and caused you to really kind of retire, probably maybe a little bit sooner than you might have thought. But you also came back. What caused you to come back after?
No, that's I tell you, I have nothing but stories. But here's the thing: what happened? If I had nowadays, when back in those days, when you were hurt, you played. You kept playing. We didn't take days off like they take off now. I hurt my arm, I've got to take a day or two off. If you weren't bleeding and a bone wasn't broke, you had to play. You played. So I even when I hurt my back and a few other things, I just kept playing. So in a sense, if I had taken days off and got well, I probably could have lasted 15 years. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that my back got to the point where I couldn't survive anymore with my back. So I coached at Stanford University. I was assistant coach to Tom Davis.
Oh, you were Dr. Tom's. I knew you were there.
Tom Davis.
Yeah.
And I was assistant coach. Now the Golden State Warriors would come up there and play games. Practice during the off season. So what happened is that I could play with them every 3 days. My body couldn't do it every day anymore, but I could play really well against those guys, really well. And so Nelson would see me playing. He said, well, Kermit, you can still play. I said, no, I can't. I said, because I can't play every day anymore. I said, those days are over because I can play a day and then take 2 or 3 days off, and then I'm back to normal. But the problem was in the NBA, you can't do that. And so he says, well, if you come out for the team, I'll guarantee you 10,000. I said, no, that's okay. I can't do it. I think we got up to 30 or 40,000. I said, guarantee me. I said, what time do you want me there? And you know what? The funny thing is, I started the first couple of games because I earned a starting position after not playing for 3 or 4 years. But I knew that I was hoping my back had improved, but no. After like the first 5 or 6 games, my back got so bad that I knew it was over. But I knew it was over before I even tried, with hoping that maybe I would have an opportunity to get better. But you don't get better from certain injuries like I got from. So I quit once again, and I knew it was over after that.
So talk to us a little bit once you realize that's it. I'm never going to play basketball again. Talk to us a little bit about your post-basketball career. I know you did a lot of humanitarian work in Africa.
Well, you know what? I coached in high school. I coached at Menlo High School and in the area. I was assistant coach at Stanford for 4 years. I coached in the G League. We won the championship. I coached in China. And with Guangzhou, that's when Yao Ming was playing over in China many years ago. So, you know what? It was. I'm realistic. I'm really good one-on-one coach. Mm-hmm. I'm not a good coach for a team because I'm not a yeller and I'm not a screamer. I think people want to get better, but some guys just want the money. Some guys aren't going to be motivated. It's so many different things that, I had to go through and learn. And that's why I started just training people on my own one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And I worked for the NBA union. So I really had 2 jobs. The NBA union, which I loved that job. We would do seminars and do speeches and stuff like that for the players. And then when I was home, I would train NBA players. weight training, what Pete Newell taught me.
Yeah. Interesting.
So it went well. It went well, and I enjoyed it.
And after that, I mean, you did do some work in Africa, right? With
well, I did work in Africa for 25 years.
Yeah.
I was in Rwanda during the genocide, where 1 million people were killed. I saw it on television. I called a group to donate some money, and I donated the money, but they said, well, can you go with us to Africa? I said, go with you to Africa? And I said, well, let me think about it. I went over there and worked in Rwanda and Goma, Zaire, and I said, I can help these people. And so what I started doing, I just started going. I went 35 times. I built a school, built a clinic. We were feeding maybe 40, 50,000 people a year and helping people start businesses, everything like that. So, you know what? The most gratifying thing in my life is going over there and helping people in need. And so I feel good about that.
And that didn't end necessarily well, which we don't have to dive into, because I'm sure that's not a fun time in your life. But is it something you think you'll go and do again?
Well, you know what? So many of the kids and so many of the people, they miss me from helping them.
Yeah.
And you can go into the situation. It came to a point where the government thought that something was happening and I was part of, which I was not part of.
Mm-hmm.
I proved it on a polygraph test. You can see that on YouTube, Kermit Washington polygraph test. I passed all 4 of them.
Oh,
They're too long to watch, but if you watch them, they said I took money out. I took money out, but then in the polygraph test, it shows I put $300,000 of my own money. I traveled there 35 times, built a clinic, but they didn't want to hear that. So it's a long story, but between you and me, I should have been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm being honest with you.
Fair
for
enough.
25 years, helping hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, building clinics, building schools, not telling anybody about it publicly. But the doctors and nurses, I must have taken 30 doctors over. I paid for everything. I used a lot of my NBA retirement money for paying for everything. And all I told the feds, you know, they didn't want to hear certain things. But when I passed the polygraph test, they never charged me anymore with that. Because I told them, I said, I'll take the polygraph test anywhere you want. See, people don't go, here's the thing, I told them, people don't go to Africa during the genocide and work. And all of a sudden you're saying it was for beneficial purposes for me individually. I said, it's nothing like that. Nobody does that. Nobody goes to Africa, the parts I went through, working in the slums, working in the filthy areas, trying to help people to become better.
Yeah.
And no matter what people say, you know who you are, you know what you've done. In America, I was feeding close to 10,000 people a year. And that's either easily justified too. I have the receipts, but I never told people what I was doing. I went and we would feed probably 1,200 people every month. I have the receipts from every single one of those. It was a grocery store in a very bad area of Long Beach. And nobody knew I was doing it though, because I'm not one of these people that said, okay, I want everybody to pat me on my back. Yeah. Now on Facebook and Instagram, I kind of like people telling people what they've done good, because it motivates other people to do that too.
Yeah.
But for me, I rather keep it quiet, because I know what happens when everybody thinks you have money, they all come after you. And I didn't have that kind of money. I was still working 9 to 5, but I passed that polygraph test. But they didn't want to hear that, because they had already put me in a newspaper saying I was involved in this big scam and tax evasion. I wasn't, but it's too complicated of a story to just say a few minutes of it.
I understand.
I tell people, go look at the polygraph test on YouTube, Kermit Washington taking a polygraph test. Now, some of them are short, but it shows you 3 things. I put like $300,000 in They said the book that I wrote, the Fed said a lot of it was exaggeration. Well, the polygraph says, well, Kermit Washington is telling the truth about everything in the book. It's something else too. What was it? Something else. But I passed all the tests, and you'll see the guy who administered the test. They'll show you the test, the wavy lines or whatever, that Kermit is telling the truth. Now, that's something that's over. Now, would I want to go back again? Yes, but here's a problem.
That was my question.
I lost a lot of money. I had a wonderful job, paying. Let's say this. I had a wonderful job with the NBA. I had a wonderful job training ball players. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything better. And then this comes up out the blues with somebody that was under me, who would just sell my memorabilia for me to raise money. He started selling counterfeit software. I knew not on eBay. I knew nothing about it. I didn't have the slightest notion what they were talking about when they came to me. So it's a long story.
But you had the name, right?
I think if you go on YouTube, look it up, you'll see my side of the story. You can believe it or not believe it, but all you have to do is understand nobody in their right mind goes to Rwanda during the genocide. I'm serious.
I get it.
You have 1 million people killed. I'm around dying people. People have died all day long for a week. It wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant. And so, let people judge just like everything else. Let them judge me when.
Oh, no. Come back, Kermit.
That's just the way things are.
I lost you for a second. Listen, there's an old axiom, right, that no good deed goes unpunished. Let me ask you the question this way. If you knew what was going to happen and the price you'd have to pay unjustly, would you still go back and do it all over again?
Oh, my goodness, yes. When you can help hundreds of thousands of people. I took 36 doctors over. I paid for everything. Well, they saved many people's lives. Many, many people's lives. If I didn't take them, those people would have died. And a lot of kids wouldn't have had the education that we paid for. We paid for the education for 20 some years. We started a school. The clinic I built, the people that helped, not having babies in their house, but having babies in the clinic. I'm really happy with what I've done. I'd go back. Listen, to be honest with you, I would even give up my life to be able to help that many people. Life is boring to me. If I'm not helping people doing something, I'm not happy. I've already reached all the goals I wanted really in life.
Yeah. Well, you started, as we talked about before, a new podcast, or not new now. I guess you've been doing it a little while, the 20 and 20 podcast. What are your goals? What are you aiming for now? You said you reached all your goals, but you're obviously still.
Well, the thing is that you have to be busy. And for me to be able to make money, I want to do well in the podcast, and I can get almost all the athletes I want to get. Is one good thing. Most of them are my ex-teammates or my friends or whoever. They know who I am. But the thing is, if I do well, then I can go back to Africa and help people. But I don't have the money now. Yeah. I mean, I make it month to month now. But I feel, what? I'm happy now. I'm happy. I have hope. That's the best thing. I have hope that things will get better. I'm not angry a person. I'm not an angry person. Listen, my life, I've been so lucky in so many things. I mean, the right place at the right time, the right person came around. They saved me from a miserable life. From my high school teacher to my coaches in college, to Pete Newell, to just name it. Just go on and on. So I'm very thankful. Red Auerbach, just name it. All those guys like that.
That's great. That's great. Please, everybody get out and check out Kermit's book, 20 and 20, the Kermit Washington story. It's on Amazon. I told Kermit I wanted to get the book, and everything I do is on Kindle these days. But if I got to get the paperback, I'm going to get it. That's quite an endeavor, by the way. 700 pages. That's quite a story.
Well, you know what? My life is a story. Yeah. I'm telling you, the people I've met, I've been very lucky in everything. What people kept saying, you need to write a book, but I'm not a writer.
Yeah.
So for me to sit down and put it on tape recorder, having somebody write it, going over it, said, no, this is not right. It's just, it was a long endeavor.
Well, I'm happy to, have you on and tell a little bit of that story anyway today and get your story out to as many people as I can because I've enjoyed talking with you and learning about you as I've got ready for this podcast. It's been a lot of fun. And because I remember a lot of your career. I'm only 9 years younger than you. I'm not that much younger, but I do remember those years in the 70s and the 80s. And I remember them fondly. And I always thought that, there was a not quite fair the way Kermit Washington was treated through that whole.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. I appreciate that. But you know what? Life is not fair.
Yeah,
it's never been fair. It's never been fair. But you have to just pick yourself up and keep going. Well, and you can't worry about what people say about you because you know who you are.
Well, I really appreciate you coming out and spending this time with us, Kermit, and maybe we'll do it again. We can dive into some more of your stories because I've had a great time talking with you tonight, and I love the way that your perspective on life, especially with some of the things you've gone through, is very uplifting. So I appreciate.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I had to break for a few minutes, but you take care of yourself.
I'm going to wrap up. If you can say 1 second after I wrap up, I just want to say goodbye before I let you go. I'm going to take you out of the room, wrap it up, and come back real quick if you got 2 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Guys, Kermit Washington, what a great story. Get the book, 20 for 20 and 20, the Kermit Washington story. You can get it on Amazon. It's in paperback. You can also check out the 20 and 20 podcast with Kermit Washington. Please do that. He's got some great guests, as he said. He's got James Brown was just on here not too long ago, so it was very enjoyable. So, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Keith Engle for TGI Sports Talk one-on-one with Keith Engle. Thanks to Kermit Washington, and we'll see you guys later.